If you enjoy this content, please like, comment, subscribe, and share with someone who might enjoy this content too. La Maîtresse. I am not a racist. Melody shouted at her husband, Tom. I know, Mel, but the problem is, everyone who was at the meeting thinks you are. Why can't you just keep your big mouth shut? Tom retorted, beating his forehead against his fist. I don't want our neighborhood, our town to go down in value, Melody hissed. Don't you think everyone wants that? I'm just saying what everyone thinks. We don't want low-income housing poppin' up in our town, especially not this close to our neighborhood, Melody interjected. Tom steepled his fingers in thought before dropping his head into his palms, massaging his temples. Mel, for the love of God, the next time you have something mean to say, for the love of God, keep your big mouth shut, Tom groaned. A doctor can afford to sell their house at a loss, but we can't, Melody began. Mel, I know that. That isn't the point. The point is you told Dr. Irvin to go back to her country. Well, it's true. If that bitch wants to live among other people, she can go somewhere else. It's coastal elites like her that is hurting the rest of us. Mel. Shut your mouth and listen. Tom shouted. Dr. Irvin is the only surgeon we have in this area. For the love of God, stop. Tom backed into his office and shut the door, locking it for good measure. Melody crept into the back of the studio while the 10 or so women in front of her were already in the lotus position. Being late meant being relegated to the back of the room where it was unlikely to receive one-on-one attention from the instructor. Melody unrolled her yoga mat and wriggled and twisted her legs into the lotus position. She fought the urge to groan. She was stuck behind Neil the homo and his rich bitch friend. What was her name? Soft rustling mingled with the sound of chanting and flute music as everyone stretched out. Melody caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror as Neil and his friend sprawled out on their yoga mats. She thought she saw a strange shadow, or perhaps her own shadow, bend and curve in a way that was upsetting to say the least. After yoga, Melody stood outside the community center and posed for a selfie. She took several snaps, then reviewed them. She wanted to capture the light perspiration she had on her forehead and the flush on her cheeks. The first photo was blurry. Melody deleted it. The second snap was better, but there was a shadow over one side of her face and didn't showcase her flush enough. The third snap was a complete failure. A gray shadow completely obscured her face. Melody moved out from under the shadow of the community center and took another series of selfies. Of the 6 photos she'd taken, only one was decent. There was a gray haze that sat over the photo, though the sun had been shining directly on her face. She growled at her phone in disappointment and uploaded only one photo to all her social media accounts. Tom and Melody hadn't shared a room in nearly 2 years. On rare occasions, Tom did check in on Melody with a gentle rap at her door. Come in, Melody called out. Her bedroom door squeaked open, and Tom's head popped into her room. Confusion knitted his brows together. He shook his head before blinking several times. Why do you look like that? Melody asked. Nothing. I thought I saw, never mind, Tom began, then cleared his throat. Just wanted to make sure you were home safe. Good night. Good night, Melody replied. As Tom shut her door, she sank back into her pillows and turned out her bedside lamp. She closed her eyes and drifted off. The rustling of freshly washed bedsheets woke Melody from a sound sleep. In the darkness of her room, she thought she saw something move under her thick billowy comforter just over her shoulder. It wasn't the chaotic rustling of an animal. It was steady, like someone breathing as they curled up under the covers beside her. Melody smoothed an arm over the unused side of her bed to find nothing. Tom had left for work long before Melody woke. She groggily strolled down the long hallway from her room to the kitchen. She had slept for nearly 10 hours, and she still felt drained. With every step she took, her lower back burned with muscle failure, like she ran a marathon in her sleep. Melody had to force herself to turn on her camera to film her breakfast preparation and consumption. She wanted to upload a "What I Eat in a Day" video, but due to her restrictive diet, she needed at least 2 days of footage for enough material to splice together. When she had filmed herself energetically posing with her food, she put it in the fridge because she had no strength to eat. Midway through editing, the photos began showing a haze or lens flare over her face in every picture or video. The more she strained to figure out the culprit of the malfunction, the more her back throbbed. Melody gave up and uploaded her vlog untouched with no music or seamless cuts. Melody wasn't sure how long she'd been asleep. Her phone woke her with a seemingly endless trill of notifications. She rolled toward her nightstand and picked up her phone, the white light blinding her momentarily. As her eyes adjusted to the light, she caught what she thought was someone else in the reflection of her phone. One comment and direct message after another scrolled to the top of her screen. Hundreds of people were on her channel, discussing her content, but no one was reaching out to her. Onryo, it kept popping up. The last word she saw was "La Maîtresse" before her phone turned black. What the hell, Melody muttered to herself. Something swept her long hair aside, sending a chill down her spine. "Tom, is that you?" Only silence answered. Someone or something was in her room. She couldn't see or hear it, but she could feel a stirring in the air. Melody fought the urge to childishly bury her head under the blanket. In the darkness she was sure she could see the silhouette of a person. She told herself it was just her eyes adjusting to the dark. She slowly slid down her headboard until her head touched the pillow, then she pulled the blanket over her head, telling herself, "There are no such things as monsters," repeatedly until she drifted off to sleep. Tom was, much to Melody's surprise, home. He froze as she stumbled into the kitchen, feeling more tired than she had before she slept. "You have a friend over?" Tom asked. Melody grimaced, then shook her head. "Oh, I guess I just imagined a woman creeping back down the hallway," Tom muttered, sarcastically. "What are you talking about?" Melody bit back. "Anyway, the real question is, why are you home? You're gone if you can help it." Tom didn't reply. Melody glanced up at Tom, taking in the confusion and the color draining from his face. "Mel, I think we have an intruder." "Call 911, Tom whispered. He pushed past Melody into the hallway leading back to their separate bedrooms. Tom returned to the kitchen looking sick and confused. He was silent and remained so until he was out the door. Melody gave a disgruntled huff. She considered going after Tom, then quickly decided against it. The water heater and water pressure in the house had never given out in the 5 years they'd lived in it. Melody gritted her teeth as she ducked under the ice-cold trickle from the shower head. As she stood under the ineffective trickle, she sensed that she was not alone. Someone was rubbing her shoulders. The hands weren't big, they were feminine, long, slender, and cold. Melody frantically brushed away the shampoo suds escaping her head onto her face. No matter how many swipes she took at clearing her sight before confronting the intruder, the soapier her face became. She opened her eyes and spun around with both her elbows out, hoping to catch whoever it was in the solar plex. As her eyes burned, she looked into the face of herself, though it was all wrong. The other woman had her long oval face, brown hair, but the similarities ended there. There were milky gray eyes, a crooked ski-slope nose, and oversized yellow teeth. The gray-blue skin around the teeth was pulled back so tight into a joyless grin the face might split. "Fuck!" Melody cried, both at the woman in her shower and the suds in her eyes. She stumbled out of the shower and bent over her sink, fumbling blindly for the faucet. Her heart hammered in her ears as a scream bubbled up from the bottom of her stomach. She was prepared to let it out once her eyes stopped burning and she could get a better look at the intruder. The pressure returned to the shower as Melody was able to see once again. "Fuck my life," Melody snarled. She quickly glanced around the bathroom. She was all alone. When her attention returned to the mirror, standing behind her, or at least she thought the intruder was standing, was that face again? Its gray oval face and sightless eyes hovered next to Melody's. From between its yellow teeth slithered its black tongue. "What the fuck?" Melody cried as she scrambled out of the bathroom. A shivering and wet Melody settled in her car with her laptop. Her fingers shook as she logged into her channel and scrolled through the comments. Everyone seemed to have an opinion as to what it was that had seemingly attached itself to her. Melody broke down and let the tears fall and her body wrenched with sobs. She needed help. All the people watching her content seemed to be taking joy in her pain, and she let herself cry for that too. When Melody was done crying, she read her direct messages. Most of them were accusations of her faking the entity. Some were jeering messages. Only 3 messages were of pure intrigue. "You have a poltergeist," one message read. "You have a demon," read the second. "Melody, I think you have La Maîtresse attached to you. My great-grandmother once told me about this creature that waited for travelers at crossroads. She said that when she was a little girl and the French occupied Vietnam, the missionaries called it La Maîtresse. I'm sorry, I can't add any more information than that. My great-grandmother has passed, and it has been decades since she told me about the creature. Best of luck," read the third message. Melody typed La Maîtresse into her search engine. The search engine's first result was a translation from French to English. "The Mistress" was the first definition she saw before she scrolled further down to see more results. Nothing, there was nothing more than a few blogs circa the 2000s. Melody hit the live button and the camera on her laptop lit up in blue. She didn't care that she looked a mess and didn't have anything on except a towel. "Help," Melody croaked into the camera as tears welled and spilled onto her cheeks. "I don't know what to do." Immediately, the counter on the bottom of the screen began morphing into larger and larger numbers. "OMG, look behind you," read the first comment. In the glare of her laptop, she could see the outline of that thing behind her. She howled as she scrambled out of her car and back into the safety of her house and made sure she locked the front door. She sprinted into her bedroom and made sure to lock that door as well. Melody paced the length of her bedroom, wailing and pawing at her wet hair. "What do I do?" Melody shrieked at the top of her lungs. "Shit, you see that?" popped up in the message feed. "This is a joke," read another comment. "CGI and post-production 100% read another. Melody opened her closet door, abandoning her laptop on her bedroom floor. The pings from the message board and the glimpses of those yellow teeth made Melody's skin crawl. She retreated into her closet, slamming the door shut. The last thing her viewers saw was Melody's white run-of-the-mill closet door. They heard Melody's primal scream before a long gray gnarled hand reached into the shot and the screen went dark. Had Melody bothered to read the circa 2000s blogs, she might have learned that La Maîtresse in English meant the mistress, and as in English it could be the mistress in an affair or a governess, among other uses too. Had she spent a moment reading any of the blogs, she might have learned that the creature was an ancient one. Many cultures spoke of such a creature that latches onto the living for an array of reasons. La Maîtresse, as the former colonialists of Southeast Asia had named it, was said to have been a schoolgirl on her way home when she was ambushed by 2 young missionaries. They attacked her and left her for dead. The devil himself made a bargain with the girl. In return for using her broken vessel, the devil would avenge the girl's death. It was said that all missionaries should be weary on their travels around what was then dubbed Indochina. The creature latched on and consumed the organs of their host. As it consumed, it took on the likeness of their host. Had Melody read any blog, she might have seen that all she needed to do was make amends with those she'd harmed. She might have also spared Tom the news that his wife's autopsy was abnormal. He might not have been told that Melody died of a heart attack, only she had no heart in her chest, nor did she have kidneys, half a lung, or eyes.